Hello. I've had a very frustrating day trying to make a video. I did a recording a couple of weeks ago with some analogue reel-to-reels, and it was a bit disappointing really. They didn't perform as well as I thought. And it suddenly occurred to me that maybe what I should do is get those reel-to-reels and all the other formats that I've still got here sitting on shelves and actually conjure up a sort of test between them. It was quite tricky to work out how best I should do it. So the cunning plan is that I took a track, edited a few bits and pieces together in Cubase, and I'm going to use that as the source material because it's been constructed in Cubase. So it's never been recorded to an outside medium at all. So it's been digital from sort of the outset. And I figured that was the safest way to start this test. Now, I can't pretend that this test is scientific or even particularly well thought through, but it does look like what I've actually got are recordings of the same piece of music on different formats that all sound slightly different. Some of them very close, some of them horrible. So the cunning plan, when I thought of it, was that I needed to find some sort of source material. It was no good just playing my favourite track. The problem is, if I use a commercial recording, then I've got a pretty good chance that YouTube will identify it. At the very least, I'll get a ticking off, I might get a strike, or even worse, it might get removed. So I figured I've got to find an alternative. So this is how the test is worked. The actual source material is recorded at 48K 24-bit in Cubase from a combination of microphones and sounds that are produced inside the box. So no external pieces of equipment to hiss and hum. Once I've got that, I've sent out a stereo analog pair to each particular piece of kit. And the kit that's in this test goes back to my Tascam 34B, a 4-track reel-to-reel, a Revox A77 reel-to-reel that I didn't think performed very well the other day, and then getting a little bit closer, late 90s, a Porter disc. I bet many people have not seen these things. They're portables. They'll work on batteries, rechargeable batteries, or they'll, and basically they're a mini disc recorder. So it's obviously designed as a sort of an alternative to sort of film style recording out in the field. Nice big chunky buttons you can work with gloves on, and they come with a carry case so you can stick it around your neck. You can open the flap and then you can actually operate it through that front panel, and there's a little touch panel on the top so you can actually get to the buttons for stop, record, pause, rewind, all that sort of stuff from there. Little pouch where I used to keep the microphone, and these things were really good. And I think it was probably, it must have been about 1995, something in that sort of region. And I rather like these. I've got two. One I think I'm keeping for spare parts. The other one works absolutely perfectly. And they've got a really big VU meter on them, which is really nice. So all in all, I quite like those. But it's mini disc. So mini disc means compression. We talk about compression now because we're always going on about MP3s, aren't we? Throwing away data. But the compression system used on mini disc was a thing called A-Track, which Sony had a big hand in. And I always thought it sounded great. Lots of people didn't like it. And mini discs, of course, as a sort of domestic medium, just died a death. Nobody was really interested in them at all. So we got rid of mini disc. I carried on using it for as long as I could. It was great for theatre playback. I'd got some Sonys and I got some Tascam machines, big and really hard, sort of hard-wearing, sort of very reliable things. And they were really, really good. I like them. I did also dig out of my store a Tascam 112 cassette, which frankly I thought would be a bit feeble if it even worked. And I managed to find a chrome tape. So I stuck the chrome tape in it, and we've used that. And then a Tascam DA20 DAT machine, which again, I wasn't sure if it worked, but I got it out of the store, found some tapes, plugged them in, and that worked too. Now, the way that I've done the test is like this. In Cubase, I've got a stereo track, which is the source material, and I've edited together 4 pieces of music that I've recorded over the years that seem to be difficult to record in analog. Now, what I mean is there are loud bits, but in one of them, the loud bits is immediately followed by something really, really quiet. Now, if you're going to set the record levels on your cassette recorder, well, you don't want it to distort, which usually means that the quiet bit's then going to be in the hiss. So I figured it was a fair test if on the cassette deck I put on Dolby B and left it turned on. There's no point using cassettes without Dolby B. I mean, I know people did, but realistically you want to get rid of that hiss. And Dolby B seemed to work quite well, so I pushed the Dolby B button, and that's what we've used in the test. When it came round to doing the reel-to-reels, I got a big problem. Now, the test thing was sending analog audio down a cable, 2 cables, plugging it into the back of the recorder, and my intention was push record, and that's it. Then take the recording and feed it back into Cubase and record it on a new track. So it sort of goes out of Cubase, goes back into Cubase. If we then compare them, there should be differences. Some of the differences might be small, some of the differences might be great. I really don't know. It's a blind test for me too. So I tried recording on the cassette deck. That worked absolutely fine. I then tried recording onto the porter disc machine, the mini disc, and came across the first problem. The machine's working absolutely fine. It doesn't have an analog line input. It's got analog line outs, but it did have an SP diff connector. So if you don't know what that is, Sony Philips Digital. It's a digital interface that's supposedly a standard. And kit, brand new kit today, has still got, in some cases, the SP diff sockets on it. But I connected my PreSonus interface, which does have an SP diff on the back, to the input on the porter disc machine, selected digital, nothing. Now, if you've ever had experience of connecting digital bits of kit together, very often if you stuffed a 44.1 signal into a 48k input, nothing happened, but you never got told why. There was just no display on the meters, and you had to use that as the cue for getting it right. So I checked, the PreSonus was definitely sending 48. The porter disc machine just refused to record it. No analog input, so what am I going to do? I put it to one side. So then I got the DAT machine out, the DA20 Tascam, and discovered that that was actually quite happy having the SP diff input. It didn't seem to sort of mind it at all. I don't know why. They're supposed to be the same, but it said it was 48k. It came up on the display. The meters started to move, and I could push record. So I recorded the DA20's contribution to this test. Then I had the brainwave. I can take an SP diff out of the Tascam and stick it into the SP diff input on the porter disc, and that worked. So with the Tascam just on sort of record pause, so basically just going in to out, there's obviously whatever contribution its digital components do to the signal, because it's converting it and then converting it again, I'm guessing. But it went in and came straight out to the porter disc. So I've not listened yet, but it's either going to be, to my ears, exactly the same, or there'll be a conscious difference between the A-track compressed audio and the DAT, which isn't compressed. So that got me a cassette version, it got me the DAT version, it got me the porter disc version. So I thought, okay, that's going to be good. Tried the Revox. which didn't perform very well the other day. I'd forgotten how much cleaning you have to do. You know, bottles of isopropyl alcohol, lint-free cloths, all that stuff. What a faff! I do know that there's no way in a million years I'm going back to recording analogue. Under no circumstances. And all that today has done is convince me that really it's days done. And those people that are clinging to it are real enthusiasts with far more patience than I've got. Did the thing with the Revox. Stuck it into record, recorded it back into Cubase. Worked fine. I could sort of detect with the headphones it was a little hissy, but I guess that was okay. That's a Revox A77 and it's running at 7.5 inches per second. It's not the high speed version. Next up, I thought, I'll have a go with the Tascam. The Tascam 34B, 4-track. It's buggered. I can't think of a better way to describe it, but it really, really needs a proper setup, realignment and fault fixing. For some strange reason, when you put it into the mode where it monitors off tape, audio comes out, but the meters don't move. So the meters are only indicating audio on the input, not on the output. It seems to sort of switch the audio properly, but it doesn't do it very well. The other thing is, channel 1 is really good. Channel 2 is not quite so good. 3 and 4 are poorer still. So I've only got one channel that records what I would consider to be sufficiently well to use. So what you've got on here is the 2 tracks coming back from the Tascam, the 2 best I could find. Sorry about that, but it's not good. I mean, I know already that I had 2 attempts to try and get a connection sorted out. I tried different channels. I tried everything. Constant cleaning as well. And basically the Tascam 34, I think what I'm going to do is probably sell it, be honest on eBay and say, look, it's a great mechanical machine. It could be someone's pride and joy, but you're going to need to find someone who really knows how to align it and cure this weird problem with the meters. I'd never noticed it in, I don't know how long I've had it, probably about a year or so, but I've never really used it in earnest, so it's probably done that from day one. I just haven't noticed. But I do know that it's a real pain in the bum, and I'm not taking it any further because it's driven me round the bend this morning. I've wasted pretty much 3/4 of my working day trying to sort of make this video work, and the video is not very long. So anyway, recording is all done, and now we can actually have a listen to the different tracks and see which you think sound good and which don't. Right, this one we're going to listen to is the original recording. So it's been constructed inside the box, combination of some microphones, bass guitars, a few guitar twiddly bits, a bit of real piano, a bit of fake piano. It's a real mix, but there's no outside electronic instruments been used at all. Everything is pretty well done in the box. And this is the source material. what we're going to do now is listen to the cassette machine, the Tascam 112, and see what its version of that source material sounds like. Now we're going to move on to the porter disc machine. So this is the one with A-track compression, recorded from the analog input, as all of them are. Next up comes the DAT machine, the Tascam DA20, which is still performing pretty well. And it was a bit of a lifesaver in this test. So this is the DA20's version. Moving on to the Revox A77, which is 7.5 IPS. And finally, this is the troublesome Tascam 34B. The left channel is better than the right, that's a clue, but it's pretty ill. I'm sort of glad I did it because it's given me a little bit of sort of support in my conclusion that analogue has had its day. And I know that the machines are not set up. I know that probably they need cleaning. I know that the alignment is probably suspect. But the important thing is that why would I want to use them and do all that work when I've pulled a DAT machine off the shelf, which is not that much newer, the DA20? When would that be? Late 90s when I bought that? So that's 20 odd years old. I got it off the shelf, plugged it in, and it produces really good results. The Porter discs, they're actually not bad. I could use that quite happily. If I went out and about, I could plug a microphone into one of those. It would be perfectly okay for what I'm doing with it. And to be perfectly honest, I think the Cassette did damn well as well. The thing with some of those pianos in that recording, the reason I picked them, is because they can make pianos sound really warbly on a cassette if the speed control is not pretty precise. So all in all, I think the Cassette did pretty pretty well. The Tascam did dreadfully, but I think it's just knackered. The A77, well, it was okay, but I wouldn't want to use it with a spool of tape costing, what, 70 quid? That's a crazy system to want to use. So all it's managed to do is bolster up my impression that I'm really glad that analogue recording has passed away and now essentially is a museum piece. I'm sorry folks, but I really, really think that the amount of time I've spent today trying to make these machines record is out of all proportion to what we should be doing. Modern kit, stick a disc in, stick an SD card in, press record and it works. I'd forgotten how little you have to check modern gear. You know, you can power it up, press record and go. I sort of thought that's what was going to happen with some of the analogue gear, and then realised no, I've got to be really careful with the levels. I've got to keep cleaning. I've got to keep. Oh, it's just what a pain in the bum. Anyway, I'm a bit depressed after doing today's thing because it hasn't worked out like I thought. So hopefully I'll be cheered up by the next video. Look after yourselves. Take care.